In this video, I'm going to go over how to use the rename function in C to rename a file. So the rename function is found in the stdlib.h library. So the first thing I'm going to do is include that library. If any errors occur when we use the function, we can actually process them using C's error handling facilities. So I'm going to include errno.h, so I have access to those as well. Now I'm going to actually ask the user to enter the original file name and the new file name. So I'm going to have some character arrays to store those. I'll say car file 100 to store the original file name, and then new 100 to store the new file name. And I'll ask the user for both those, and we'll store them into those variables. So I'll say printf file, we'll use a scanf here, and we'll store into the file character array whatever they enter. Then we'll say printf new, and we'll store whatever they enter into the new character array. So then we're going to call the function. So to call the function, we just say rename, and then file and new. So we give as the first argument the original file name, and as the second argument, the new file name. And then rename, we'll just go out and rename the file. Now, if the rename function doesn't work, it's going to return a non-zero value. If it works, it's going to return 0. So if we want to handle any errors that occur, we're going to have to check for that. So we could say here, if rename doesn't equal 0, we know something has gone wrong. Otherwise, we know that it's worked. So if it works, I'll just output a message to indicate to the user that it has worked. I'll say printf, and I'll say the original file name dash greater than %s, and then I'll output the original name and the new name, just to give them an indication as to what just happened, that we just renamed this file name to this file name. And then if an error did occur, we're going to actually use C's error handling facilities to output the error number and the error message. So I'll say here fprintf stderr and then errno, and I'll output the error number. So this here, fprintf, it's going to do basically the same thing as printf, only it's going to print to the stderr stream, the standard error stream. Now, as a practical matter, that's going to be the terminal. But this could be redirected to something like a file, maybe to put our errors that occur into the file. And we're going to output the error number is, and we'll say %d here, and then the error number. And this errno, that comes from this library here. And it's going to be set by this function if an error occurs. Then we'll also output the error message. So we'll say here p error, and we'll say error message. And this function here will actually output the error message with this as a prefix. So I think we've got enough here now to test it out. So we'll save this here, and then we'll compile it. And then if I look at my directory here, I've actually already got some files here. I've got a file called f.txt. So let's try to actually rename f.txt to n.txt. So I'll run the program, and I'll say here f.txt, and then I'll say n.txt as my new file name. And so it says here now f.txt has been renamed to n.txt. And if we do an ls here, you can see that f.txt has now been renamed to n.txt. So the function does appear to be working. Now the can't.txt file, prior to this video, I set up that file using the Mac OS operating system with permissions such that I should not be able to rename it. So I should actually try to get an error here by running the program with can't.txt. So I'll say here can't.txt, try to rename that to new.txt, and I get an error. It says errno, error message, operation not permitted. And that's because I just don't have permission to actually rename that file. And in this case here, our error handling code actually did execute to handle that error. We could try something else here. I don't have a file called o.txt. We could try to rename a file that doesn't exist. So I'll say /d o.txt to m.txt, and we get an error again. Error number 2, and it says error message, no such file or directory. So again, our error handling code is able to handle that situation and give us a useful error message. So this is how we can use the rename function in C to rename a file. Check out portfoliocourses.com, where we'll help you build a portfolio that will impress employers, including courses to help you develop C programming projects.